DeBusschere was a terrific player.
He was the missing piece in the machine.
Brought the glue. He's a rock.
He was tough. I mean, he had some tenaciousness about him, you know, some toughness about him.
DeBusschere from 20, the jump.
Yes!
He could shoot long range.
DeBusschere shoots. Hit!
Sometimes I thought he was shooting from section 310.
DeBusschere again. Hit!
He was a consummate player, man. He could rebound, he could shoot, he could defend.
Players used to say he had a Velcro chest.
And it's intercepted by Dave DeBusschere.
Because when he put his chest on you, you didn't move. You couldn't jump off the floor.
Foul court, on the drive, all the way, running.
He brought maturity to this Knicks team.
He was like another coach on the floor.
All the petty rivalries that went on between players, somehow that went out the window.
At the forwards, number 22, Dave DeBusschere, Dave DeBusschere, Dave DeBusschere.
The toughness, determination, and maturity Dave DeBusschere brought to the Knicks developed in a working-class section on the east side of Detroit.
The east side of Detroit was heavily ethnic, Polish, French-Canadian, heavily Catholic as well.
It was a working-class area.
His father was a hard-nosed, hard-working individual. His father's business was driving trucks.
In addition to the life lessons DeBusschere was learning at home, his athletic education was being honed on the neighborhood playgrounds.
He was this freak athlete. Dave was able to play against a lot of tough people in the neighborhoods.
From a very young age, Dave was very well known and very well respected.
Kind of a legend in Detroit.
That's where he got his start. That's where he learned really how to be such a tough competitor.
Basketball started growing on me then.
When you're a little kid, you're the best kid on your block. Then you hear there's a kid on the next block who's going to cream you. You never knew if you were going to make it. You always thought, oh my God, they're going to kill me. And they never did.
At 15, he was thought of as a potential baseball professional, basketball professional.
He was sort of their hometown hero.
His senior year in high school at Austin Catholic, Dave DeBusschere led his team to the city finals as a pitcher and to the 2A state championship in basketball, scoring 32 points in the final game. Despite DeBusschere's athletic accomplishments and national recognition, he passed up offers from larger, more traditional sports schools to stay in Detroit.
There was a lot of good basketball talent in Detroit at the time. And I don't think that it was much of a surprise that, you know, Austin High's pride and joy, Dave DeBusschere, would go to the local Jesuit university.
His family was not a wealthy family. He was from, you know, a lower income family in Detroit. And he wanted to make sure that his mother and father and his sisters could see him.
If the University of Detroit was not known as an athletic powerhouse before DeBusschere's arrival, both the baseball and basketball programs quickly established themselves nationally behind DeBusschere's leadership.
I think Dave sort of brought them into the national limelight. I'd never heard of Detroit until he got there.
So you didn't have a lot to hold on to if you were a sports fan. But Dave DeBusschere and his University of Detroit teams were something.
Dave DeBusschere led the University of Detroit Titans to the NIT, and when he left the university in 1962, a tough decision loomed: play professional baseball for the Chicago White Sox or play for his hometown Pistons. For DeBusschere, the choice was easy. He did both.
You love both sports, equally good at both.
He was a tremendous power pitcher.
Big, you know, this was you know, pitchers today, they're all 6'6". That was rare in those days.
Harmon Killebrew would be foaming at the mouth, waiting in the on-deck circle to just get up against him.
DeBusschere's job with the Pistons didn't get any easier.
You know, Dave was called upon to take them out of their misery.
Being such a hero at high school and college, the Pistons just felt this is a sure winner, and of course he was.
Despite solid play from Dave DeBusschere, the Pistons struggled. And with the 1964-65 season off to a slow start, a decision was made to replace coach Charlie Wolf.
Dave was reading, and the phone rang. All of a sudden, he said to me, "Would you mind going out? This is something private." And I came back, and all of a sudden, he said, "I'm your new coach."
And then Fred Zollner, who was the owner, felt, gee, if he's leaning towards baseball, we really need him for basketball. So that's why he did make him the youngest coach, actually, at 24 years old.
Stops, puts up a one-hander, that is good.
One of the only sadnesses of his athletic career, he never knew how good a pitcher he might have been.
Dave DeBusschere, and averaging 21 points per game.
After nearly 3 seasons,
He feeds DeBusschere on the right side for a one-hander, that's good.
with a lack of talent to coach besides himself,
DeBusschere jump shot from 15 is good.
DeBusschere stepped down as coach of the Pistons. A little over 1 year later, in December of 1968, the Pistons traded Dave DeBusschere to the Knicks for Howard Comives and starting center Walt Bellamy.
People in Detroit were so horrified.
If I had to go anywhere, I would have picked New York anyway.
I was thrilled.
You knew they were a team ready to burst out.
But I thought when he came to the Knicks, he was kind of in the twilight of his career.
At the throw is number 22, Dave DeBusschere.
He was rejuvenated as a Knick.
And that changed the whole complexity of our team.
They always say he was the final piece of the puzzle, and I agree with that.
DeBusschere's arrival solidified that team on so many levels.
Here's Willis Reed, back to DeBusschere.
Going from a 7-foot center to a Willis who's, at best 6'9". Being small and mobile and quick proved to be a dramatic shift.
DeBusschere's adjustment to his new home was eased by the friendship he formed with Knicks forward Bill Bradley. Their on-court chemistry paid immediate dividends for the team.
Bill Bradley and Dave DeBusschere were best friends.
DeBusschere bringing it up into Bradley all by himself.
And they were, two different people. I mean, Bill, Rhodes Scholar, Princeton, my father, University of Detroit, blue collar.
Both Bill Bradley and my father had that same perspective about themselves. They're just regular guys that happen to have a job that puts them in the limelight.
He was a special friend. He was, in some senses, a true brother.
Together, DeBusschere and Bradley helped transform the Knicks into a legitimate championship contender.
We had a good run in his first year.
DeBusschere has been sensational.
We came in December. The rest of the season, I think we won more games than anybody else.
The Knicks' success continued in the playoffs as they reached the division finals for the first time in 16 years.
Beautiful teamwork.
But a bitter 6-game series loss to the Celtics left DeBusschere eager for more.
I recall right after that game in the locker room saying to Willis,
guys, we're going to win this next year.
Dave DeBusschere with 26 points, a tower of strength.
The Knicks finished the 1969-70 season with the best record in the NBA.
A sensational victory for the New York Knicks.
They headed into the playoffs, where they faced a familiar foe in the Baltimore Bullets.
It was Willis against Unseld. It was Clyde against Earl. It was Bradley against Marin. It was DeBusschere against Gus.
There's never, ever, in all my years of watching basketball, been a better matchup than Dave DeBusschere against Gus Johnson.
Dave DeBusschere, what a game he's played.
The two of them battling with each other like no two players I think have ever battled before.
After a grueling 7-game series against the Bullets, the Knicks surged past the Bucks into the finals against the Lakers. The Knicks had New York's undivided attention.
And I was up for the Oscars for Butch Cassidy, and it was during the playoffs. You couldn't fly to LA the way you could fly to LA, and it was a pain in the butt. And there was no way I could miss a game.
With the series tied at 1 and Game 3 tied with 12 seconds on the clock, the Knicks ran one of their favorite plays.
DeBusschere, when he would sit his screen in the middle of the lane, he would pop to the top of the free throw line.
8 seconds left to go on the clock.
Dave runs the play perfect. He's just sitting there waiting for the ball, and he gets the ball. Boom, shot goes in.
DeBusschere shoots. Hit with 3 seconds to go.
Game 3, DeBusschere thinks he's won the game.
2 seconds. 1 second.
After Dave hit the shot, he went back on defense, and he went baseline to baseline, and he's standing under the basket when Jerry West's shot goes through.
West throws it up. He makes it.
He fell flat of his back. Somebody had shot him.
The ball game is tied. Jerry West made it from the other side of the midcourt stripe.
Dick Barnett said, "Hey guys, it's just another game, but only it's a lot shorter."
We're playing a 5-minute game. That's all we got to do is win a 5-minute game, and that's it. And we beat them.
A sensational victory for the New York Knicks.
The victory would give the Knicks the upper hand. But the series was far from over. The Lakers won Game 4 of the 1970 Finals to tie the series at 2.
And we have now come down to the best 2 out of 3. Just that simple.
In Game 5, the Knicks found themselves in a desperate situation, trailing the Lakers when the captain went down.
Willis is hurt.
I ball faked like I was going to shoot the ball, then I started to drive to the basket.
Willis very slow to get up.
And when I drove to the basket, then my leg gave away on my hip and thigh. Just gave away on me.
And when Willis went down, everybody thought, maybe this is it.
I never thought we'd win.
Without Reed's presence at center, the undersized Knicks turned to DeBusschere to neutralize the Lakers' most dangerous weapon.
Dave's job was to prevent Chamberlain from dominating everything.
And the Knicks are going to have to find a miracle man.
Now Chamberlain's probably 8 inches taller.
He drives on DeBusschere, foul ball, Chamberlain.
And weighs about 100 pounds more. But Dave was right there with the elbow right in his back.
We would not let him get the ball.
He was very physical without getting thrown out of the game.
Dave has done a tremendous job covering Chamberlain.
Here's David. He steps forward, and he's the catalyst.
He bullets one down, fourth in his skate is centered by DeBusschere. Fast break from the next to look on the block. Leads Reed, driving shot is good.
But it was that 5th game that illustrated all of the qualities that made the Knicks the champions that we were in that time.
Bradley from 20, he jumped back. And for the first time tonight, the Knicks lead the Lakers in what has been an astonishing basketball game.
The Knicks neutralized Wilt and won Game 5. And after they were blown out in Game 6 without Willis, the stage was set for a winner-take-all Game 7.
19,500 fans here in New York City have yet to see Willis Reed at this hour of the evening.
Willis was on the table. Nobody knew whether he was going to play or not.
New York hoping that Willis Reed will play.
I think Dave went over to him and said, "If you could just give us a few minutes tonight, big fella, we'll do the rest."
I think we see Willis coming out. And the cheer you hear is for Willis Reed coming out of the locker room. There he comes across the court to join his teammate.
He watched Will Chamberlain when Willis came out.
The Lakers have stopped, and they're just watching Willis.
Right then and there, I said to myself, they're done.
You could see defeat in their eyes.
We got them.
In Game 7, when you look back on it, you think of Willis, of course.
West at the top of the post, Reed.
But all of a sudden, we forget 18 points and 17 rebounds.
Near side, DeBusschere hits from the block.
Huge numbers.
After the game, there you are, smile on your face. It's aching because you're smiling so much. Chills running up and down your spine, your fists in the air. You realize you're the best in the world.
After it was over, it's like dreamland. You know how you can make everything perfect in a dream? Everything was perfect.
The New York Knicks are the world champions.
On the cover of Sports Illustrated is not Willis, but Dave with his mouth agape, his eyes wide open, sweat coming down off his head. Just a typical Dave DeBusschere in mid-game type pose.
I love Dave DeBusschere.
Following the 1970 championship, The Knicks would get close, but ultimately come up short in 71 and 72. As the Knicks headed into the 73 playoffs, there was a sense that this could be their last shot together.
Everybody kind of thought that that was going to be the last chance for that team.
The only question about it was, would we remain healthy? And if we all felt if we stayed healthy, we would win it.
After defeating the Bullets in the opening round, the Knicks faced the Celtics.
Of course, the Celtics were our bitter rivals.
That particular season, we went 68-14, which was only one game off the record at the time.
After blowing a 3-1 game lead, now they have to go to Boston and win a game 7.
You don't win on the road. A 7th game in a place like we were playing in.
The Knicks traveled to Boston, trying to become the first visitor ever to win a Game 7 at the Boston Garden.
And it comes to DeBusschere again, hits!
He was good.
DeBusschere to the head of the foul circle. Cuts right, driving, hook, yes!
He liked playing against the Celtics, too.
With their Game 7 victory over the Celtics, it was on to Los Angeles and a trip to the NBA Finals. The Knicks went on to defeat the Lakers in 5 games, cementing their place in NBA history.
To Reed, Willis, hooked by Bradley, and that's the story. The New York Knicks have defeated the Los Angeles Lakers, and they race off the court with the 1973 World Championship.
Early in the 1973-74 season, to the surprise of many, DeBusschere announced he would be leaving the Knicks at the end of the year.
I have a recollection of seeing him walking out of the Boston Garden, and I remember the poignant feeling that this might be it.
I realize that I'm going to be playing my last season as an active player.
He himself felt that he played that game so hard.
I find it extremely difficult now, playing 2 and 3 games in a row.
At this point, he couldn't play it the way he really wanted to.
DeBusschere hobbling off toward the sideline.
I think he averaged 18 points and 12 rebounds his last year.
You have to end your career sometime, and I want to quit while I'm on top.
I remember him saying to me, I want to go on my best year.
Dave DeBusschere could have signed a new contract and made a lot of money, but that wasn't him.
He'd spent his whole life in sports, so it was like, this is the next chapter of my life.
That team would never be the same again. Yeah.
Dave DeBusschere's retirement from playing did not signal a departure from the game. He became GM of the Nets in 1974 and commissioner of the ABA 1 year later. After spearheading the NBA-ABA merger, DeBusschere took some time away from the game before being lured back in May of 1982 with an offer to become the GM of a struggling Knicks franchise.
Very few players can go on to be a general manager.
He was the face of the Knicks back then.
The great memory we all have of Dave DeBusschere is pounding the desk when they got the #1 draft choice.
The second pick in the 1985 NBA draft goes to the Indiana Pacers.
I was very proud that day when the Knicks won the lottery.
We're going to select Patrick Ewing, and it's a great day for the New York Knickerbocker franchise.
DeBusschere left the Knicks as GM in 1986, but stayed active in the basketball community. A community that was shocked by his sudden death on May 14, 2003.
Sadly, today, fans are mourning the death of Dave DeBusschere, who died of a heart attack in Manhattan this afternoon. He was 62.
Still to this day, I have a hard time believing that's what happened.
Dave's the kind of person that we all think of as living forever and immortal.
And when he died, I think everybody realized, oh my God, we're all going to die.
It ended too soon. It's a loss, a tremendous loss. Nobody can replace that void.
After he passed away, we started getting all these letters and notes in the mail, and we had just shopping bags filled. He really was extraordinary, and I knew that. But just, I think, really helped to hear all that from everyone.
Throughout his life and career, Dave DeBusschere was a model to his family and teammates. The respect of the basketball community was evident by the honors bestowed upon him.
And we are set
to honor number 22, Dave DeBusschere.
I think that night when they started chanting defense and they really were standing up for a lot of the ceremony, I had never seen him well up with tears, and that was one of them.
I am very, very proud. I am very honored. And besides that, I'm overwhelmed. I love you people. I love you.
When you look at a man's career and you want to honor him after a certain amount of years, the subject of Hall of Fame comes up. Wasn't it poignant that Bill Bradley and Dave DeBusschere would go into the Basketball Hall of Fame together?
It is quite an honor to share it with a teammate.
I think about him a lot, even today.
It's one of the memorable days of my life.
He will always be in my heart as a brother.
From the New York Knicks, number 22, Dave DeBusschere.
Dave DeBusschere reached the heights of basketball stardom, but he never lost sight of who he was.
He cared about the real people because he was still that kid from Detroit.
What you got is what you saw. He had absolutely no tolerance for pretense. He believed in his friends. His life was led for the game and his friends.
The one quality that I would want my kids to have that I've had, that he taught me, was to just treat everyone the same, no matter who they are.
He was just a genuinely good, caring, modest, hardworking man. Just a wonderful human being.